All right, everyone, we've got the final top 8 and winner of the sector qualifier in Richmond. 600 players, biggest tournament yet, I think, in set 4. And my goodness, are these results amazing, honestly. Like, they are really cool to see. And on top of that, I don't really know if there's a way that this meta could get better, or like at least if this stays the same, I don't really know how you could ask for anything realistically better. Big thank you to my patrons. Let's talk about these lists. We're actually going to dive into each one individually, but first I just want to give a quick overview. We've got 2 Quinnland Reds in top 8. We've got 2 Han 1s, 1 Han Green and 1 Han Yellow. Sabine Green winning the whole thing. Anakin Blue, Kira Green, and Cad Bane Red. If you just divide these ones up into various archetypes, Sabine is definitely the most heavy aggro of all of these. You have Quinnland and Cad Bane kind of in a similar spot, as well as Han Yellow being these like tempo, putting on pressure style of decks. I think Cad Bane's the one that's on the further end, closer towards mid-range than the others, but all kind of in that field. And then you have Han Green, Anakin Blue, and Kira Green. Well, with Han Green, definitely like traditional mid-range where you're just kind of getting value throughout the game. And then Anakin Blue and Kira Green on the more side of soft control / mid-range. So you have a really nice spread of archetypes. The only ones that are the only one that's really not here is like true hard control, Bosk Blue, Palpatine Blue, that type of deck. But FFG doesn't want that in their meta. And so there's not like a dominant deck necessarily. There's not a dominant archetype. There's not even, I mean, there is a dominant base you could say, because there's 3 Tarkin Towns here, and then 1 ECL, 1 Data Vault, and 1 Colossus. But it's not to the degree that it's like oppressive or anything that's like super alarming. This looks awesome. And we're going to dive into each list, as I mentioned, starting us off with the actual winner of the sector qualifier. And to be honest, this list right here, really not surprising at all. It is pretty much the same list that we've been seeing for Sabine for a long time. There is a couple things that I'm interested in. One thing that I've landed on as well that I found to be very solid. But first off, I mean, we have the Rebel package, right? The new cool additions we have. Luke Skywalker. This one's a pretty nice one. I think in Sabine, this makes a lot of sense. Just having any sort of extra 2-drop, but also one that could be more useful later on is really awesome. In that you can pilot this onto one of your space units and get extra damage immediately, but also it just becomes a little bit more obnoxious to pilot this on, get some damage, and then, you know, your opponent's still having to deal with something. Sabine's Masterpiece. This is an amazing addition, by the way. This is one that I wasn't quite sure about, but when I started playing with it more, especially in a command deck, ooh boy, is this card pretty good. Battlefield Marine or A-Wing, which is also a new addition, into Sabine's Masterpiece. Getting an attack from this thing can be really obnoxious. And you have very likely high chance of having an aggression unit because Sabine as your leader comes down, and then you have your aggression unit, but then you have the command unit that starts passing experience tokens around. It just becomes really annoying really quickly. I like the little bit of reduction in wing leader. I think that does fit the strategy more often. But the last new addition is Chewbacca, and this one's great, especially for those controlling matchups or the matchups that are looking to just defeat every single one of your units, put it on A-Wing, and just go to town. Outside of that, I mean, the list is pretty much the same list. Rebel Assaults, Metal Ceremony, every unit is a Rebel for the most part. We still have the Poe Dameron and Wrecker ECL combination in the late game for us to just completely wreck. The only other card that I'm actually a little bit surprised to see is Sundari Peacekeeper. This is a card that was in some Sabine Green decks, and is the card that I put in my Sabine Green deck back, you know, in, was it set 2 really? And this was like one that I was always, you know, on the fence about, depending on where the metagame was in, or was at rather. But I think it does make a good amount of sense based on where all the other decks are at. Having 5 toughness is really nice up against Tarkin Town decks as well, and that may also be a consideration. There's 2 copies of Darksaber, even though there is upgrade hate out there. I think the Darksaber, especially in the main deck, makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is just classic Sabine Green. There isn't really anything too innovative about this, to be honest. Like if you've been playing Sabine Green for set 4, this is pretty much what you would have landed on. The only exception is that Sundari Peacekeeper potentially, but again, definitely a solid list. Next up, we've got Quinnland Red, and this is what we're oftentimes seeing with Quinnland Red. First things first, I mean, Quinnland Red definitely considered to be one of the best decks in the entire format. When you're looking at this list, of course, Force Throw is a major contender as to why it is super powerful, mainly because you have not only just like Ahsoka and sometimes lists play Ezra, but Quinnland deploys early enough to where Force Throw is still extremely relevant when Quinnland comes down, right? You play Quinnland, you get to Force Throw and Kira or Ahsoka on the same turn. That's amazing. Really, the aggressive start of this deck, though, does put it in a situation where you are really struggling because you've got these shielded units like L3 and Crafty to put on pressure. Your opponent's hard-pressed to deal with them. You maybe kill off their unit with a ping plus target town for Quinnland. You've got your Sabine, which is an amazing turn 1 unit, A-Wing, which is a great turn 1 unit as well, into your turn 2 unit, which is most likely going to be your Guerrilla Soldier or a combination of events plus cheaper units. Like, sometimes you go Force Throw plus 2-drop, or sometimes you just go 2-drop again. Guerrilla Soldier is an amazing addition. I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest, to see this style of Quinnland. Disabling Fang Fighter main deck, like no Ezra, no realistically tons of 3-drops to play on turn 2, 3 full of main deck Spark Rebellions, 2 Bamboozles main deck. Definitely a more interesting list than I have seen lately, but I do think Guerrilla Soldier is amazing. I think X-34 Land Speeder is something that definitely people have been considering and something that, may be worthwhile to check out if you are considering Quinnland. 3 of Ahsokas, 3 of Kiras, 3 of Plo Koons, 3 of Millennium Falcons. This is all very consistent. Nothing too surprising there. This whole deck is all about getting in early pressure with units that are hard to deal with, and then kind of disrupting, right? Free Bamboozles, disrupt your hand with Spark Rebellion, Kira's, Ahsoka's, prevent you from playing your cards, defeat your upgrades with Disabling Fang Fighter, ambush your units with Plo Koon and Hoth, and then Quinnland comes down and he just kind of starts pinging everything with, the ability. So really just a solid list, and this one's not really too surprising either. None of these are really that surprising. Han Green is the next one. This is one that when Set 4 came out, I felt like Han Green benefited more than Han Yellow did. It's just that Han Yellow was still quite a bit stronger purely because you had DJ Tech and then Cunning, and then you had all the different Cunning cards that were just amazing, right? With DJ being gone and the meta shifting a little bit, I think Han Green is potentially a little bit stronger than the Han Yellow variant, at least in my experience so far. We've got a lot of new additions from set 4. We've got things like the new Millennium Falcon. This one's pretty amazing with the new Chewbacca and the new Han. This one just gets super strong super quickly, and it can be obnoxious to deal with. We've got new Blue Leader, which is amazing. You can ambush ground and space, depending on what you want to do with it. The new Poe Dameron is pretty sweet as well. Becomes a 4/5 for essentially 4 resources, or can pile it on for some more value on that Millennium Falcon. And then you have, just a bunch of kind of filler pieces, a little bit of disruption with Kira, resupply. You're still getting to the 7 turn with Enfys Nest, Han Solo, and U-Wing reinforcements, all of which are amazing options. And that's pretty much Han. I mean, there isn't anything too specific with Han. It's really just a value deck. It's really just, hey, I'm going to play good units and I'm going to play them a turn ahead of you because I can have an extra resource. And that's really all Han is trying to do. This is much more of a consistent mid-range style of deck than the other Han that we were typically seeing, which was the Han Yellow. That was much more of like, I got to put on pressure, I got to choose my disruptive elements at the right time, and I got to make sure I can close out the game, which is really important. But the new pilots, amazing. The new Millennium Falcon, amazing. I like Luke a lot in this deck as well, because you can curve like Millennium Falcon into Luke, and just having that turn 2 Luke is pretty nice because you can get in damage, put on pressure, and if your opponent does deal with it, you still end up with a 3/2, which is pretty sweet as well. Next up, we've got Anakin. Sorry for the more port image, but this one is pretty awesome as well. This one's also a little bit of a force throw deck, okay? A little bit of a force throw deck. But for the most part, we're seeing a lot of the same type of cards that we were seeing in previous Anakin decks. The new additions, and honestly, is this Covering the Wing? I don't even remember this card, to be honest, in set 4, but it is a new set 4 card. The Covering the Wing, I think, is I don't know. Let me see it. It's let me just pull it up here. Create an X-Wing token. You may give a shield token to another unit. So you get an X-Wing, you get a shield token. Honestly, I have no idea about that card. I've never played it. Like realistically in my decks, I don't know if they had good effect to it. Who knows? But we also had Outer Rim Outlaws. This is a card that I have been on for a few different decks. The first one is Han 2. I've liked Outer Rim Outlaws in Han Blue. I've also liked Outer Rim Outlaws in Gar Saxon. And Anakin also makes a lot of sense because it's a 5-powered attacker and it still has shielded, which is amazing. Red Squadron X-Wing, definitely something that's pretty solid, just draws you a card. Village Protector is all standard stuff. We have new Cham Syndulla. I think this is a great addition. There's a lot of decks out there like Han. This is just a main deck way to ramp up against Han, which is incredible. You've got things like Kira out there, which is also, getting a bunch of resources. Any deck that's playing resupply or just Han or any ramp in general, Cham is just amazing. So having it main deck, I think, is makes a lot of sense, Other than that, there's not really a whole lot of additions. I think this is just a really solid deck. I guess the other thing that I should mention is Colossus, which definitely has improved Anakin a lot. One of the big things about this list is that you're really not restoring a whole lot. You have the Yodas and Lukes, but like they're pretty late in the game. You kind of do rely on the extra 5 HP to get you to Anakin so that Anakin can close out the game. And I'll say this, Anakin does come down, and he oftentimes is like an 8-7 and just closes out games ridiculously quickly. The next one up we've got is Han Yellow. This is much more traditional, much more something that you're used to, probably something that you've seen a lot. With set 4, did we use any new cards? Well, we've got, all the standard ones, which we've talked about so many times. We've got the new Ahsoka Tano. We've got the new Mandalorian, nice little piloter there. And we've got, that's pretty much it. That is pretty much it. The rest of the deck hasn't really changed. The overall strategy of doing the, hey, I'm going to drop the Cunnings on you, the Bamboozles, the Disruption, the Kiras, the Ahsokas, the Cantina Bouncers, and I'm just going to cruise along and you're not going to be able to play the game is pretty consistent. I think the Mandalorian is a great addition. I've also appreciated the Mandalorian in this list. I think the Mandalorian is one of those pilots that definitely are a little bit more tricky because it's a double cutting card. So you can't really play in a lot of stuff, but it is one of those pilots that definitely I gravitate towards when I'm in the double cutting area because that potential to exhaust a bunch of units is pretty solid, as we've seen with Jango, but then also he has a decent stat line as well. It's just a matter of he's double cunning, which makes it a little bit more tricky. Obviously, no more DJ because it's banned. People are still playing tech. I think that this makes sense to some degree with Han Solo. With Han, you definitely have a lot of things in your resource pile and you can take advantage of them with tech, which is not bad because you do want more cards that you can smuggle out because you do end up empty-handed in a good amount of games. But I don't know if I'm quite as convinced as others. I don't really think you need the full 3 of tech. I think it could be potentially more of a sideboard option. But yeah, I think all this makes a lot of sense. And then I think there's a couple more. Next up, we've got Kira Green. My bad. Kira Green. And this is the list that I've been looking at, especially since it's got a pretty good matchup up against Quinnland. The overall list is pretty much the same. In terms of set 4 cards that we've added, there is actually only one new card, and that is the No Glory Only Results. In the sideboard, you also have the Annihilator, but No Glory Only Results is extremely important for obviously the various amount of death effects that opponents have, but more particularly things like Chewbacca definitely are pretty common, and the overall or the No Glory Only Results solves that issue. Outside of that, I mean, the deck, as you can see, heavily tries to index towards vigilance cards for Chilson. Definitely a very important one to try to get benefit out of. Still playing vigilance, nice way to heal. Lots of removal, power the dark side, takedowns, fell the dragons, rivals fall, no glory, super laser blast. And then you got a powerful late game in Darth Vader, Maul, and Reinforcement Walker, Devastator, and Avenger. Really can't compete with that. The other thing to mention is Overwhelming Barrage in this deck is kind of gross because you flip Kira, you get to shrink every unit down, and then you get a almost guaranteed 6-powered Overwhelming Barrage to wipe up the board. And that's one of the things that really makes it easily able to convert into the mid to late game, which is very, very nice. Overall, the deck has been performing really nice. And then, of course, we have Data Vault, which is something that I have been playing on a lot of my decks because I think Data Vault is the extra 3 HP for the extra 10 cards in your deck is worth it. The extra 3 HP is pretty important, and the extra 10 cards doesn't actually change the math a ton in the grand scheme of things when you're playing a deck like this. And of course, only decks that are looking to get to the mid to late game are interested in bases that are increasing their HP for the most part, because other decks don't really care nearly as much, or they just rather play ECL. But this is a list that I have been really on the lookout for, and I do think is one of the better lists, specifically just because of the meta game. It is a list that's already good, but the meta game makes it so much stronger. And then we've got, I think the last one we got to talk about, Cad Bane Red. This is one that we've been seeing a ton. There actually is a couple of new cards from the new set. We've got ourselves the Mist Hunter as well as Houndstooth. And then in the sideboard, we've got things like Cham, Devastator, IG-2000. I've seen people play main deck IG-2000. I've seen people not do that. I've seen people play, more sneak attacks. I think the Bamboozle is a really, really important addition. I think this card is broken, realistically. And one of the things that I've said a long time ago, like back in set 1, was that I'd be on the lookout for Bamboozle, because any card that you can play for free makes it very scary. And Bamboozle, you can play for free in terms of resources. You have to discard a cunning card. But guess what? If you've noticed, basically the entire deck is cunning cards. You can even consider Hotshot Blaster a cunning card because you're going to resource it and then you're going to smuggle it out for cunning aspects. But I mean, this just goes to show you how powerful cunning truly is. I mean, the deck is Cad Bane Red and you've got 5 red cards. Of course, sideboard, there's more, but I mean, come on, guys. You got the new Houndstooth, the Mist Hunter, as I said. I mean, Mist Hunter, pretty nice to draw if you do happen to draw a couple of extra cards. There are a lot of bounty hunters in this deck. You've got Forlom, Zuckuss, Bosk, Boba Fett, all that good stuff that would trigger that. Houndstooth, I'm not as convinced about Houndstooth as some others. I don't know if this card's all that great. I don't find it to be all that great, but maybe I'm wrong. I think Jabba the Hutt is a nice addition. This is one that people have been playing. There's a lot of tricks in the deck. You have Maclunky, you've got Bamboozle, you've got Sneak Attack, you've got Waylay. All of those count towards your Jabba the Hutt findings. And just being able to pull up one of those very powerful events can do some major work. So that's pretty nice for Jabba. Of course, we're just going to be pinging things across the board with Cad Bane, and that's going to be where the value comes in. But still a very solid deck, and something that never needed Triple Dark Raid, really. So something to think about. And that brings us to the end of all the kind of different lists. There is another Quinnland Red that we could talk about, but they're pretty similar. I'll just pop this up on screen as we're closing out the video here. But this was an exceptionally interesting tournament. By the way, this one's the Ezra, more force-based strategy with a little bit of a more consistent deck. But this is a very cool meta to see. It was very diverse, multiple archetypes, and the overall metagame coming into it was very diverse as well. There wasn't more than what was it was Quinnland at 9%, I believe. Quinnland at 9%, like that's super low when it comes to overall metagame. So I don't know what we're even going to see next tournament. I mean, the winners here, obviously Quinnland, Kira, Sabine, the classics, but like no one is surprised by those results. the top 8 isn't surprising. And I think that's something that's really important to note. It's just what we expected after Jango Fett, which is awesome and means that so far the changes have been very successful. And I think that's awesome because I know a lot of people were a little bit upset about that. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below about the whole meta and overall the top 8 here. I definitely think that we really couldn't ask for more in terms of diversity of leaders and diversity of archetypes. But let me know if you really want your hard control being one of the decks represented here in the top 8. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.